Off bracket number 1, is the appraisal process color blind? This is from Housing Wire. Leaders should seek reasonable and effective solutions to eliminate racial discrimination from the home buying process. So this is all focused around appraisals, as mentioned, and there's been multiple reports of race-based appraisal bias among certain appraisers in varied locations across the nation. They're referencing here a Washington Post article. There's a New York Times article that they've also linked up, and various other local news outlets. Okay, so just recently, what happened? What is the news? Recently, in June, this month, here in 2021, the White House put out a fact sheet on this issue. All right, so the administration states that it will aggressively combat housing discrimination given the focus. Given the focus here and the clear communication from the administration, what should be done? All right, first. And so the fact sheet is linked, but this is what they're saying should be done. First, every lender should have an escalation process for second-level review for any appraiser to a minority buyer that comes in below value or estimated value. If warranted, lenders should proactively support a second appraisal. All right, so how did they get to this one? Before we get to number 2 and 3, let's go to that Washington Post article. And this is a one-off, example, but there's multiple examples out there. So we're just going to go with this one example in Washington Post, which was located in where the heck was that?
Up there, up here.
I got the Washington Post link up. All right, so that was Gwen and Lorenzo Mitchell. They were in Denver.
It was a January article.
Yeah, January Washington Post, January 21st. And anyways, they want to do a home equity loan, so they had to have the appraiser come out.
Yep, they wanted to refi. Yep.
Yeah, basically refi the house.
Renovation.
And they are south of the Martin Luther Boulevard.
No,
some boulevard in town.
No, that's where the comps were pulled.
The comps were pulled south, so they're on one side of this boulevard, and the comps were all pulled from the other side. All right, so they're in Park Hill. Or the comps were pulled from houses from the black side of Park Hill. They're on a diverse side of Park Hill.
And they decided to do this appraisal because based on what they had seen selling in their neighborhood, they believed that their house was going to be worth between $450 and $550.
Right. And they basically were being very conservative. They said if the comps are between $450 and $550, we should be right at $500. The appraised value for their home equity line of credit came in at $405,000. And again, all the comps were pulled from a different part of town. So it was not a true comparison in their neighborhood.
And they were home. She was home when
No, he was home. Lorenzo was home, who is black. Lorenzo, 3 kids were home.
Okay.
When the appraiser came. Okay, so they were like, what the heck?
Right.
Appraiser obviously comes to the house, takes photos, takes measurements, does the report. Met Lorenzo, 3 kids, because they welcome him in the home, do the appraisal. They're there for like 10 minutes. These appraisers don't really even do anything at the house. It's a total joke how appraisers appraise homes, in my opinion. We'll get into that in a little bit.
We will get to that.
And I'm sure I'll have appraisers,
I'm sure
as
you
always,
will.
when I talk about this topic in the comments. But so Lorenzo and his wife, Gwen, are like, okay, Gwen happens to be white. What the heck's up with this? We need to have a second appraisal. All right. So they said, you know what? We're just going to have Gwyneth. I know what Gwen, she goes by Gwyneth now.
Is that a song?
I don't know, is that a thing? Gwyneth. Anyways, she's not going by Gwyneth. Gwen is like, I'm just going to be home, just me, to meet the appraiser. So white Gwen meets the appraiser. The next appraisal comes in $145,000 more than the first appraisal. So $405,000 all the way up to $550, the top end of where those comps were coming in. So clearly huge disparity in the two appraisals. Now, an appraisal is an opinion of value. And obviously they're arguing with where those comps were pulled in the first one and the fact that Lorenzo was there and not Gwen, that there was a racially based appraisal on that first appraisal. Now, that could very well be true. I don't know if there's no fact to back that up, obviously, but it looks that way, right?
100%.
The facts look like it leads that way.
Yes.
Anyways, An opinion's an appraisal of value. I've always argued that the way we do appraisals is total baloney anyways. You have one human being come into a house for 10 minutes, mumbling.
If they do, because during the pandemic, remember, they were doing they were doing desktops. They weren't even going into the homes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, you can get basically an accurate number without going into these homes.
Potentially.
In my opinion. Just like an appraiser's value is their opinion.
Right.
These are the most miserable people in the real estate industry.
Wow.
Mumbling, stumbling through a house, doing measurements, taking the crappiest pictures of all time. And they're out of there in 10 minutes, right? They're just trying to blow through their day. Now, the appraisal industry has certainly gone through some changes. I'm not saying they're killing it. They're not making tons of money on this deal. But technology is going to take over the appraisal industry. You're not going to see human beings coming up with these opinions of value, okay? I've always thought that if you have a low appraisal, the bank should automatically be having it tested by 2 or 3
automatically
more.
Well, this is stating that that they should consider it, but no appraisal. I'm sure every agent can attest to the fact that I've had ones obviously come in low and the buyer has to fight it. How often does an appraiser actually voluntarily change their appraisal?
The problem with this is, and
Zero?
we'll get to the second point that the White House fact sheet they want us to go here to, which is basically having a second person involved. Right. The problem is the buyer doesn't want to pay for a second appraisal. Right. They just paid for one. The lender doesn't want to pay for it.
To change a current appraisal, you wouldn't need to pay for. If you
the lender has to eat it. Somebody has to pay the appraiser.
Well, but that's if a person is physically going back out. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just talking if you're arguing it and sending over different comps.
Correct.
That appraiser has to be willing to change what they've already stamped as being a value.
But here's the problem with that.
Yes.
And we've been in this situation
too many times. Yes.
Where you as the agent are saying to the appraiser who came out, here is why this valuation should be changed.
Right.
The appraiser, the human being with their opinion of value, starts peacocking.
Of course.
Outrageously.
Because now you're telling them they're wrong, and then they're not going to admit that they're wrong because they stamped it and they sent it to the bank, telling the bank that this number is what I stand by.
They do not want to say they're wrong.
Right.
And now you're getting into this awkward, combative conversation.
And they have all of the power in this situation.
Oh, yeah.
Because all they have to say is no.
Yeah, they've got all the power. This industry is ripe for massive disruption. I don't think you're going to see human beings going out and giving their opinions and getting paid for them in the appraisal process, and the bank relying on one licensed appraiser for very far into the future. All right, but that being said, here's where this release from the administration wants to go with number 2.
Yep.
The industry needs to adopt a more colorblind process to appraise a home. One possible solution is to separate the individual who goes to the home, takes the photos, does the measurements, from the actual person doing a write-up and assessment of value, so as to reduce the impact of an on-site location-based racial bias. So that person they're just sending in measurements and photos. They're not sending in who they met.
On the MLS, 9 times out of 10.
So why are you sending a person out there? We mentioned this in a couple real words before where we're talking about cryptocurrency in the real estate industry.
Way over my head now. Yep.
The blockchain is going to eliminate all of this kind of bull crap. It's going to eliminate local town halls. It'll definitely eliminate the need for appraisers to go out and measure. All that stuff will be living on these smart contracts on the blockchain. Mm-hmm. We're not going to need appraisers. We're not going to need the little old ladies and old men sitting at the town halls. We'll get rid of those. Mm-hmm. What else could we get rid of? Attorneys. Nothing like getting rid of attorneys. There's nothing like getting rid of attornees.
You're not getting rid of attorneys.
I'm making a lot of friends on this Real Word episode.
This will be a fun one.
We will not. Bobby's shaking his head. No good, Bobby? He likes getting rid of attorneys.
Like, let's do it.
Okay, so that's one possible solution right now while we're still using human beings. Third, the efforts to automate property valuation should be enhanced. Absolutely. This is where the White House gets it right. There are new products which can help, and while the GSEs are being controlled on experimental and new products, pilots, and technologies, this is one area that should be approved for significant focus. I agree. We've got so much technology out there. We really shouldn't. I mean, how many times right now have you waited to close a property for an extra 3 weeks because you can't get a
You
human
can't-
being out there
you
for
can't
his
get
or
anybody
her
out there. Yeah.
stupid
Right.
opinion of value.
Right.
This is
Yes.
so antiquated. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
And certainly a computer or the
Well, and-
blockchain
and-
is not going to have this
And what
colorblind.
but what you said earlier too, they're
they
not
will be
even and they're
colorblind.
not even getting paid enough to do it. So
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that many people even entering, that job force if
Yeah.
you're having to run around for like $200. Yeah.
I've had lots of issues with people's opinions of values. The market is the market is the market. If a buyer and a seller agree to a price, that's really the valuation. And now I know we've got the mortgage involved and they've got to really feel good about this valuation, but sending one person's opinion of value out, and so often does this happen where in this situation, racially biased, but so often without a racial bias, does an appraiser come from out of town, doesn't know the area,
Out of town.
and pick stupid comps, just
Right.
pointless comps from all over the place that make absolutely no sense, or they don't have enough comps and they don't have enough common sense to figure out what the market is doing right now.
Well, and again, you see this, I feel like you see this more after a property has sold. How many times does an appraiser call you
Yeah.
and say, hey, listen, I see that I got the other day,
Bunch of
this
questions.
condo sold for blah, 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 blah. But the last one that sold was like this other number. How did it appraise out? And I'm
Yeah.
like, what? Like excuse me? Like you're asking me?
How did it, now
Yeah.
you're questioning the appraisal? It appraised.
Yeah.
Use it as a comp.
And then, but now I'm questioning you as an appraiser because my one bedroom sold for 135 and the last one bedroom that sold for like 90, say, but there was two bedrooms that sold for like 160. Are you not looking at those two? Like, anyway, I feel like you see it a lot after the fact too. When these appraisers are calling you, asking you about, were there credits? Were there closing cost credits? Does that even matter? Like that's going to change it appraised out at that value with the closing cost credits in there. Like, is that anyway? And it's always so flabbergasting to me when appraisers are calling the agents after finding out like about the property.
Listen, every industry, including real estate agents, there's massive disruption coming. But the appraisal industry is probably the one we'll see even before
now
before
the
it all,
government
like
is
where you
getting
have
involved.
massive
So,
technology takeover. So